All right, welcome to Computer Science 2. This is CSCE 156H. I'm Dr. Chris Burke. Many of you already know me. You can call me Burke if you like. Otherwise, this is Computer Science 2. Today we're going to give a course rundown, overview, and then we'll go ahead and get started with our first module, our first topic, which is an introduction to a third programming language for many of you, in particular PHP. Remember that we are online. About a half of you that are enrolled in this course are in the online section. And at some point you may or may not want to attend remotely. If you do, we're live streaming every lecture on YouTube. Recordings are available immediately afterwards. And live Q&A during the live stream is available both on Piazza and on YouTube chat. I monitor both of those. Looks like we're good to go. So let's go ahead and get started. Again, I'm going to give a course overview, what it's about, especially the assessment for this course, which is heavily based on a project split up into assignments. And we'll also go over the course resources for this course. So just to give this a little bit more context, at the end of a Computer Science 1 course, which is a prerequisite for Computer Science 2, we number them for a reason, you should be able to approach a reasonably complex problem, design a top-down solution, meaning that you are going to take that problem and break it up into smaller and smaller bits until there's a function to do it for you, or it's a one-liner in a piece of code. And then code a solution to that problem in a high-level programming language. Many of you, that'll be C and Java. You might have some Python. Anything else? Anybody want to brag? No? No? Okay. All right, Python, something like that, whatever. The key realizations, however, are that programs are not problem solvers. There's still a human element here. We're not in Star Trek land yet. People are problem solvers. You're the problem solvers. Computers are dumb. They can only do exactly what you tell them to do. And that's codified in this quote from Douglas Adams here that by the time that you've sorted something, a complicated idea out into little steps that even a stupid machine can deal with, you've certainly learned something about it yourself. You've solved the problem. The computer program only automates solutions. Right? Computers are very good only at processing a lot of data very, very quickly. Humans are not good at that. Humans are still problem solvers. Computers are not. So opposite tools for opposite solutions. With Computer Science 2, at the end of Computer Science 2, you should be able to approach the problem in the opposite direction. A bottom-up solution. So instead of immediately breaking the problem down into smaller and smaller parts, what you do is you ask yourselves the parts questions first, the lower level stuff first. What entities or objects should I create that will model this problem? How will those entities or objects interact with each other to solve that problem? And what data structures can I pull off the shelf to make this problem easy, right? That it's already trivially solved. Exemplifying that is a data structure that we call a heap, which is this tree-based data structure that has several properties. Turns out that if you take stuff and you throw stuff into this heap and then take it out one by one, you've sorted it, right? That's called heap sort. You didn't do anything other than putting stuff in and taking stuff out, right? Dumb code, but smart data structure with that heap. It is the property of the heap, the structure of the heap that gave you that property of taking stuff out means that it's sorted for you. You didn't have to do any clever solution. And that brings us to another quote here from Eric S. Raymond, saying that smart data structures and dumb code are a lot better than the other way around. Dumb code, put stuff in, take stuff out. Smart data structure gives you sorting, a solution to sorting. Whereas an opposite solution may be merge sort or quick sort or something like that, where you have very, very complex code, no data structures at all, right? It's much better to rely on the structure and exploit the structure of that data structure than it is to have a lot of clever code around, right? Our map for the rest of the semester, 15 weeks, regular semester, is in the first 3 weeks we're going to cover PHP. If you do not have Java experience, that is fine. Or if you feel that your Java experience might be old or needs to be updated, that's fine too. I've got 13 videos, tutorial videos that you can bring you up to speed, a quick introduction to Java. Including 3 of those videos are like full exercises. Here's a programming exercise that I gave 5 years ago. We're going to do it, right? If you do have deficient Java experience, that's fine. Watch those videos. Do the first 3 the first 3 labs in the Java instead of PHP. That's fine too. You'll still get credit for them. Do the first assignment in Java instead of PHP. But if you already have Java experience, then the next 3 weeks we're going to cover PHP, and you should be doing those labs and the first assignment in PHP. Right? Why PHP? It's just completely different from Java. It's completely different from C. Right? It's an interpreted language. It's not compiled. It's also, in a lot of ways, a terrible language. So you start to learn what aspects of a programming language are terrible that you don't want to see or use in other programming languages. Right? And we'll see that in the next couple of weeks here. In fact, if you want to, you can have a preview of it. I think the website is called PHP Sadness. And you can go there and see all the warts and all the weird stuff about PHP that makes it a terrible language in general. I only plug that because I think that it's the author of that website is the same author as Advent of Code, which I regularly plug in this course. Anyway, in weeks 3 to 6, it'll all be Java from then on. It will be object-oriented programming for 3 weeks in the context of Java. We'll then pivot over to database design, databases, SQL, and database connectivity. So a 4th programming language for many of you. SQL is a programming language. It's a declarative programming language, but it's how you interact with a relational database management system. Then we'll pivot after the midpoint of the course, we'll pivot over into data structures and algorithms. We'll cover list-based data structures. We will cover algorithms and algorithm analysis, big O analysis, searching and sorting, stacks and queues, and binary search trees and heaps at the end. Okay. Each week, on Wednesdays, you will have your lab section. If you are in the online section, then attend remotely via Zoom. If you have been exposed to COVID or feel that you don't want to expose yourself any further, you're free to attend remotely as well. You're free to work on it asynchronously. If you get it done on your own or with a partner or with a group of 3, no more than 3 is what my recommendation for labs, then that's fine too. Video 0.1 that I already sent out on Piazza is a complete walkthrough of Lab 1. If you haven't done it already, I would highly suggest that you do it. That's the Java version. You should still probably watch that to just cursory, even if you know Java, even if you're familiar with Eclipse, because I walk you through Lab 1 and show you that every lab in this course has a JUnit test suite. That's how we grade. You pass all those JUnit tests, you get your 20 points. Right? There are 14 labs. We grade the best 13. So if you miss a lab or you pass only 14 out of 15 test cases and you don't get credit for that lab, we drop it. Right? Cumulatively, that's about 20% of your grade, right? Around 20% of your grade. Starter code is provided by GitHub. You check it out. If you don't know, you should know how to, if you don't know how to do that because you haven't done that with Eclipse before, then go ahead and please check out that video. I show you how the process of going through that. Again, if you're in the in-person section, make sure that you're going to your in-person section, or if you choose not to, you can go ahead and attend that remotely, or just do it on your own if you want to. Completion is done asynchronously. It can be done asynchronously. It's just due at midnight. So it's not a due at the end of your lab section. It's a Cinderella due date. Right? Cinderella, right? Midnight turns back into a pumpkin. That's why we call those Cinderella due dates. It's grade based on completion again, and again the lowest one is dropped. So that's labs. Your assignments are 80% of your grade, and if I'm counting 20 plus 80 is 100%, so guess what? No exams, no quizzes, no summative assessment like that. It's all based on the work that you put into your, primarily into your project. The first assignment, however, is completely independent. First of all, no partners, no collaborations on the first assignment. That's to make sure that you know what you're doing, right? Well, the prerequisite for this course is that you are familiar and have working knowledge of at least one high-level programming language. So look at the first assignment. It's 3 basic programs. In fact, one of them is taken directly from last semester, and you did it on your final, or no, not on your final, or either your final or your midterm. Was it? It was the final. It was the final? Okay. It was win expectations. And you get those, so if you did it in Java, do it in PHP because that tells me you did it in Java, you know Java. Yeah.
So you can't copy and paste from your Java?
I wouldn't. I'm not going to check it too closely, but you definitely should be going for that PHP experience if you already have Java. But in any case, it's 3 basic programs, independent of each other, independent of the project here. This is just proving that yes, I am prepared to do this course. If you don't have Java, if you don't have PHP, that's fine. What you do is to test yourself to see if you're prepared for this course is, you know one programming language, if that's Python or if it's Rust or any other programming languages out there. No, okay.
I learned some Go.
Go, okay, from Google. So the programming language that you're most familiar with, if you could do that assignment in that programming language in a reasonable amount of time, you are prepared for this course. You are good to go, okay? Otherwise, after that, you can team up, and we'll talk about the specifics here in a second, but you can go ahead and team up with one other person, right? On assignments 2 through 8. All right, so the rest of the semester, you can have a partner. If you choose, you can work alone if you want to. Right? But otherwise, you can team up with one other person. No groups of 3, certainly no groups of 4 or more. Right? The 3's a crowd at that point. Right? But basically, each assignment is a phase of this overall project, and the phases build on each other. So make sure that you are doing a good job in each phase, because if you don't do a good job in, say, phase 3, if you've got bugs, if you've got issues in phase 3, you're going to be dealing with those bugs in phase 4. And you're either going to be fighting that bad design or you're going back and fixing it. The old adage, find time to do it right the first time, or you'll have to find time to do it over. Right? We call that refactoring. We call that debugging. We call that redesign. Right? It's built into the process in a lot of ways. But in any case, the individual phases are, the first phase, you're building your object, you're designing and building your objects and then doing some EDI, electronic data interchange. If you want to dovetail this with the last course, you did this as your last assignment, right? You designed objects in Java or structures in C to simulate a transaction. Then you read from a CSV file. Then you produced reports, right? Basically, you're doing the same thing for this project. And then you go and you produce additional reports. It's all a financial asset management system. Not the same thing that you did last semester, though. It's much more, it's marginally more complicated. Then you did, instead of reading from CSV files, you design a database to hold all that data instead. And then you program Java to load from that database and persist to that database, save to that database. Then at the end, you design a sorted list and implement it so that you can produce sorted reports. Right? So each one of those phases has different artifacts, different requirements, and an individual rubric that tells you exactly what we'll be looking for, how many points each thing is worth. Right? Everything has a grader as well. We walked through lab 1. You hand it in. You grade, your output matches this output, you're good to go. Right? Assignment 8 is not programming at all. It's all written, because at that point we're doing the more theory stuff, the more computer science-y stuff. And so data structures, algorithm analysis, you'll write that up, you'll hand that in as a PDF, and we grade based on that. You can still work in partners on assignment 8 though, okay? The project is it's project-based, multi-phase themed project. Again, this year it's a financial asset management system. So the premise is that this guy has gone off on his worked at a financial institution and went off on his own because that financial institution didn't want to offer cutting-edge products like short sales or cryptocurrency or whatever, right? Because those are highly volatile, highly risky kind of ventures. This guy went off on his own to try to support that, and so he wants to support clients that invest in those kinds of things. And so each one of them, there's a different type, and this is object-oriented programming, there's a different type of asset that needs to be supported. Each one has a price, each one has different behavior and data associated with it. Each phase is graded based on correctness, design, style, and documentation as well. So We'll see the rubrics for exactly what we're looking for, but the vast majority of points are going to be for correctness, followed then by design, and then way down here at the end, documentation and style, right? Because that's easy. You should have that. Should be second nature at this point. In addition to that, as you go along, each phase, prior to each phase, 1 week prior to each phase, you will be maintaining a living design document. We'll talk about this when the first phase comes up. In fact, we'll have somebody from the Writing Center come, and I usually team up with somebody from the Writing Center. It's been a different person each year because they have a lot of turnover, but so it'll be somebody brand new this year. I have no idea who it will be, but they've assured me that they would send somebody over that we can talk about technical writing from the perspective of design, right? That you use this as an opportunity to pre-design and to draft, just like you would draft an essay, right? You don't just write an essay and then turn it in, right? I mean, you can, but then it's probably not going to get a good grade, right? You draft the essay, you go through it a second time, you edit it, and you say, okay, well, all right, this needs to be improved, this needs to be shifted around, I need to change this stuff. You take that as an opportunity to draft an idea for your design before you even start to code. That's why it's due 1 week prior to each assignment, so that you can hand it in. We will, if you hand in a draft, it doesn't matter how crappy that draft is, you will get points for it. We will go in and we will critique your draft, we will critique your design and give you feedback, right? And if it needs to be changed, fine, great. You haven't even started coding yet, so you can go back and fix it. Drafts are part of the grade, but only the final draft actually counts towards your grade. So after 5 drafts that you've given us, hopefully it will be perfect at the end and you get all of your points for it, right? You also have to follow this IEEE template standard. We give you a Word document that's already conforms to that standard. If you like to learn anybody know LaTeX? Well, there's your other programming language. You didn't say it. LaTeX is a full Turing complete programming language. You can do loops in LaTeX and all that stuff. But anyway, it's a typesetting system. If you want to, you can use, we have a LaTeX template as well. If you want to learn LaTeX and use that template, great. Otherwise, just use Word. If you want to use something completely different, I have no idea, are there any other word processors other than, I guess, Google Docs or something like that? You can use a Google Doc if you want, but whatever. Okay. What then? Like a Markdown? You could do a Markdown version of it, I guess. Yeah, I'd like to see that actually, and then I'll take that and I'll templatize it and then hand it out in the future. The only problem with Markdown is that you can't do like table of contents easily and stuff like that. But anyway, yeah, go ahead.
Notepad consider Word processor?
No, it's a text editor, but word processor would be, you'd need a little bit more, I think, right? All right. So about collaboration, again, you are free to work alone. If you want to isolate, if you need to isolate, if you just find that you work best alone, that's fine. But it is highly encouraged that you work in pairs. If you do choose to work in pairs, you'll need to go into Canvas and indicate your pair. Pairing, the instructions are in the handouts and also in the video, I think, but I'm not sure. In any case, you don't do that until you start the project anyway, not on the first assignment. Even if you work in pairs, one pairing and another pairing, you can still discuss things at a high level. If you don't work with anybody, you could still discuss things at a high level, like, I've got this exception. What does it mean? Oh, well, it means this, and maybe I can help you troubleshoot, whatever. But no sharing of code, no sharing of design, right? So high-level stuff, yes, but other stuff, no. It has to be at original work with your pair or by yourself, whichever you choose. But if you choose to work in a pair, it also needs to be an equal amount of work. You can't split it up and say, all right, you do those classes and I'll do this class, or you do phase 1 and I'll do phase 2. Right? Everything has to be an equal share. That doesn't mean that you have to work with each other 24/7 or every single code you have to be sitting has anybody ever heard of extreme programming? In fact, they built, back in the 90s, the extreme programming, they built these workstations where they literally had one computer and the workstation was designed to have this other person sitting over looking at the shoulder, over the shoulder of the other person, and so that they were always working 100% on every single character that was being typed. You don't need to do that, all right? It just needs to be an equal share, right? So if you work independently and collaborate over Git, collaborate over Zoom or some other tool, Discord, whatever, that's fine, right? Not every, you don't have to work with it. Once you draft something together, go off, work independently, as long as you come back and say, okay, this is what I did, this is what I did. That's how real teams work, right? Real teams don't work with somebody sitting at the same, two people sitting at the same computer every single day. But also it doesn't work with, you do this part, you do this part, and then you never come together and talk about how they mesh together, right? It's easy to bounce ideas off of each other, right? A second pair of eyes can find something the first pair of eyes was completely oblivious to, right? That's why it's always good to come into help hours, right? 90% of the help hours that I did last semester was simply me pointing out a second pair of fresh eyes, looking at one line of code, and then just saying, look at that line of code and tell me what you're doing on that line of code. And that's rubber duck debugging, right? Then it clicked. Oh yeah, of course I missed that, right? Having that second pair of eyes to bounce ideas off of each other is extremely valuable and will solve 90% of your problems. It also allows you to develop those soft skills, communication, teamwork, which is all the more important with, by the time you go out in the industry, work from home, remote working will be the de facto. That'll be the default, right, if it's not already. And so you need to develop those team working skills, those remote working skills. Conflict resolution also, right? If you're taking on a risk, if you work with a partner, that partner doesn't pull their own weight, that partner somehow does all the work, but then it's all wrong, or they're not as, you have a disparate skill level, right? Don't team up with somebody that has 5 years of Java experience and has been programming Roblox since 10 years ago or something like that, right? Team up with somebody of comparable background, right? So that it's not a mentor-mentee relationship, it is an equal partnership, right? But sometimes, you might have to resolve that conflict. So, look, you're not pulling your own weight. You haven't been coming to the meetings. We're up against this deadline. If I don't see you there tomorrow, then we're going to have to dissolve this partnership. Or, you didn't do too well. We didn't do too well on that last phase because you're a night owl and I get up at 5 a.m. To go running. Another plug. We'll go running again this semester. Still, nobody's taken us off. Only 2 or 3 people ever actually come. It'll be the first Tuesday of every month, by the way, starting in February. February 2nd or 1st, mark your calendars. Right? Anybody coming this time? No? Okay, fine. Anyway, yeah.
What time is it?
We usually go at 9 a.m.
That's about 5.
No, well, I mean, normally I do, but for the faculty one, I wait till 9. But yeah. Not right now. At least 30 degrees wind chill, and I'll go outside. I don't go below that. I'll do the treadmill inside instead. Anyway, conflict resolution. You might have to cut your ties, right? And having those, developing those soft skills and communication where there's low stakes in class. That's a really valuable experience, right? And if you need me to act as moderator for any of that stuff, let me know. I'm happy to do that. Right? Partners can mooch, flake out, disappear. They could drop the course for whatever reason. They wanted to change majors midstream or something like that. So choosing to work in a pair means that you're taking on a responsibility and a risk that other people aren't. Right? You're not only responsible for yourself, but you're responsible for somebody else. Don't undermine the learning experience of somebody else by doing all the work. So that's just opposite of the moocher, right? Somebody who enables the mooching or is overbearing and no, it has to be this way. It has to be this way, and doesn't listen to the design suggestions or the design ideas of the other person. That's not a healthy partnership. So make sure that it's a healthy partnership. Make sure that you're using Git and other tools to pair up and collaborate reasonably, right? And of course, you need to pair up in Canvas when it comes time so that we can grade you appropriately. Right? Take the long view in this course. Make sure that you understand where we are, where we're going, and importantly, also where you've been. Look back on your design, so start by reading the assignments now, and then later on in the semester, look back on your design. Was it ideal? Should I have changed anything? If I had done it this way, then I could have saved a whole lot of time later on. The technical debt, we'll talk about that in a second. Have a good, well thought out design on paper. That's the purpose of the design document before you even open Eclipse. Design your test cases before you code, TDD. That's test driven development. Tests come first, they shouldn't be an afterthought. Designing good tests, good input-output pairs also means that you understand the problem. If you have to create a test case, that means that you have to create an input, and then you have to work through the process yourself to generate the output. And if you've got that, then you know what you should be programming in order to automate that solution from the input to the output. Use proper debugging techniques. Don't just hunt and peck or use the poor man's debugging of printing stuff out. Use a proper debugger in Eclipse. Ask questions, attend help hours early, and ask for feedback on your design if you need to. Right? That's the purpose of the design document. But if you want to come into office hours and ask about feedback on your design, do it. The people who had the best designs last semester, or last year, I guess it would have been, were the ones that gave themselves enough time in order to do that, right? If you're working up against the deadline, then you don't have enough time to get that kind of feedback. Right? Design comes first before you even start to code. Make sure that you design your objects first rather than the interactions of those objects. That's how we've set out the project anyway. And remember Eric S. Raymond that smart data structures and dumb code are a lot better than the other way around. And yet another quote here from Eric S. Raymond is that it's okay to throw one away, meaning that you may have a bad design at some point. That's what prototyping is all about. Prototypes are never perfect the first time. That's why they're called prototypes. You create a prototype, you create a proto design, you find that it doesn't work as well, so you throw it out, you start over, right? Too many people are reluctant to do that. If you write 100 lines of code, you think that there's an investment in that code, right? You think that I put in a lot of work to write those 100 lines of code, right? 100 whatever it is. Thinking, oh, there's value in this. I don't want to just delete it and throw it away because it does something and I put some effort into it. Throw it away. It's worthless. The value in that was that you wrote it and you went through a process. You went through a process of understanding the problem. And you come out of that with a better understanding of the problem, maybe a better idea of how to approach it. If you are married to that code, right, then that impedes you from coming up with a better solution. Be comfortable with throwing it away. That's what prototyping is all about. Right? That's part of the engineering process. Yeah?
I had a nightmare when I was like a 400 and something line project for high school, and I had finished it, but it was like clunky and held together by like single lines of code because I had done one bad design in the very beginning.
Yep, exactly.
It fell apart, and it took so much mental power to be like, all right, delete.
Exactly. Right? It's what is it called? It's a sunken fallacy, the sunken cost fallacy. Excuse me, where you put you invest something, you invest time, effort, money, or whatever into an investment, and it's in the hole, right? Whereas it's better to just throw it away and ignore it than it is to keep throwing money down that hole to get it back up, right? Just throw it away, start over. Start at ground level rather than digging your way out of the hole. And it does take a lot of mental effort because I wrote that code, right? I love that code because it's my baby, right? Throw the baby out, right? It's not a real baby, right? It's just garbage, right? It's garbage code. In fact, you do that, you have no problem with it when it's somebody else's baby, right? You look at other people's code, and when you go out in industry, you will find a lot of bad code base. Some of it might be good code base, it's just that it looks bad because you didn't write it, right? And your first instinct when you see bad code is, this is garbage, I want to rewrite it from scratch, right? Well, why didn't you think any of that was valuable, right? Because somebody else wrote it, right? It's not your baby, right? Detach yourself from that. Yeah, it's your creation, but throw it away, right? There's nothing inherently good about it just because you wrote it, right? Otherwise, you'll be incurring what's called technical debt. If you don't have time to do it right the first time, then you'll have to find time later on to do it over, right? Time is a resource. Like any resource, it can be invested or it can be loaned, right? This is why we call it debt, technical debt. If you do a bad design up front, if you write that 400 lines of kludge, right, then you've taken a loan out on your future time. Either you will be redoing it, refactoring it, or you will be fighting it or debugging it, right? In other words, you will be taking out more, you'll be paying more time in the future in interest, like any loan. You take out a loan for $1,000, you don't just pay $1,000 back. You pay $1,000 plus interest. You take out a loan on your time, there's really no limit to how much you're going to be paying back. It's not a low interest 2% loan, right? It is a completely unbounded, I have no idea how much of my future time is going to be sunk into this. Whereas the opposite of that, you can look at it as an investment. If you invest some time up front with a better, well thought out design before you start coding, then that will pay dividends later on. If you put something into the bank today, it pays you interest later on, and you have more time later on that you're not debugging, that you're not fighting that design, right? So look at your time as a resource, because ultimately that's what you're selling later on. When you have a job, right? What is your commodity that you're giving into that job? Your time and your effort, right? And what are they giving you back? Hopefully good money and benefits, whatever, right? Think of your time as money, because it is. If you do collaborate, make sure that you're using get. If you're not in the habit of using get yet, then you need to be. That is the de facto tool nowadays. It has been for quite a while. In fact, didn't we hit the 20th anniversary just recently? I'm not sure. Another suggestion I have is Saros here. Saros is a collaborative plugin for Eclipse. Especially if you are remote and you are collaborating completely halfway across the world or in 2 different dorms, what you can do is you can set up this plugin and then you can edit the same code in the same Eclipse at the same time if you want to. Otherwise, that's the purpose of Git, so it's distributed or whatever. There are more tools available here. This will be posted later. Basically, it's a whole bunch of collaboration tools that you can work in the same screen or screen share, stuff like that. Right? And then finally, one that I give you is what's called a Gantt chart. Gantt charts are, I think, over 100 years old, quite old. They're very old. Gantt charts are a project management tool. Basically, what you do is when you approach a project, you have a due date on that project. And what you do is you design a chart to work backwards from that due date. You identify major aspects of the project or small aspects of the project, and then you say, all right, this will take me or take the team 10 hours. This will take the team 5 days, whatever. And you put it in sequence, because if something is necessary for the next phase, then of course you have to do that first. And most of these things are sequential. Some of them are not sequential. For example, this one is later than this one right here. And so it's out of sync, but you can kind of see this linear flow. And you can see the dates that I've already set up. There's yesterday, here's today. We're on the red line right now. It's all automatic. This is Excel, so it updates. If you just open it up tomorrow, then this will automatically be advanced. All right? But what I've already done for you is I've mapped out the major items for assignment 1. For example, the first step is to read and understand the handout. You'll want to do lab 1 because that's an introduction to PHP, Java. Then you'll want to set up your environment and maybe outline your programs. Then you have lab 2 at some point, which is not this Wednesday, but next Wednesday. Then you'll want to design and implement your test cases. At some point you'll have lab 3. Then the first rough draft of your code, debugging, factoring, cleanup, and submitting and testing with the grader. You can see here that for the first one, I've allocated 3 days here. For lab 1, I've only allocated 1 day. For setup of online of your environment, whatever, I've allocated 2 days. Not that it's going to take you 2 days. It shouldn't take you 2 days. It should take you a few minutes at most, especially if you already have Eclipse set up. But I've allocated that time. Sometime in that 2-day window, I'm going to allocate 50 minutes, an hour, or whatever, devoted to this task. All right? As you move along, you can update this. Well, I already read their handouts because I wrote them. Right? 100%. And you see that the progress bar here has changed color. I'm on time now, whereas before I was behind because there's purple stuff on the other side, on today or in the past. Right? Once this is done, or maybe I've already done the handouts and maybe I've already done lab 1, so I'm good to go. I'm ahead. Right? So what I can do is I can reallocate some of my time, or I can continue working on the next task here and then marking that off as done, etc. Not everybody needs this, all right? Especially since I'm talking to an honors class here. This is not a requirement. This is simply a tool that I give the class in order to know whether or not you're on task. If you say, oh, I don't need 3 days to do that, I'm going to go ahead and allocate only 2 days to do that. Fine, go ahead and change the dates. 1/25, there. It shifts everything. Right? If you want to make changes to this, if you want to break this down even further, well, that's not one step. That's 3 steps that I've identified. Split them out. Right? If you don't want to use this at all and you want to use some other technique entirely, that's perfectly fine and it's up to you. I'm simply giving this to you as a tool to monitor and engage with your time and to determine if you're on time or maybe behind. It's completely an individual thing. However, I will be following along with this on Piazza. I will update that Piazza post that is pinned to the top until the due date. Right? That's the last thing. Right? I allocate 2 days here to submit and test with the grader to make sure that everything works. So that's a Gantt chart. Use it, don't. But if most people here are probably able to self-organize and get things done on their own without having to use a tool like this. But you should be exposed to tools like this. You'll use something like this in industry because management does need to know, are we on task to get things done? Usually you don't use a Gantt chart, you use a burn down chart and sprint and stuff like that. Yeah?
With a handout, do you mean in Canvas assignment 1?
Yeah,
Okay.
just read it. You know that there's a win expectation program, an entropy program, and then a data projection program. There are 3. Understand what each one of them is, what of them does. Recognize that one of them is from your final last year, right? And, oh, okay, I know how to solve that one. Right? You could be done with you could be done with this entire first module here today if you really wanted to, and then you're way ahead. Whatever. Everything is asynchronous because it's been like that even before COVID for this course, for most of my courses, but at some point, unfortunately, everybody in here may eventually have to quarantine. I might have to quarantine. I'm vaxxed. I had the booster a while ago, but I've got kids, and so they bring home any manner of diseases. So. Let's see. Other resources include Canvas, Piazza, GitHub. A lot of stuff is posted there, including the notes. I've already posted that on Piazza, though. There is a textbook with this course. It's not the Zybooks textbook that some of you might be familiar with. It's free, open source. I wrote it, and so I assign things out of it. You won't see anything until we hit databases out of it because I haven't written like an OOP chapter. I don't have a Java chapter. Instead, I have a Java handout for you if you want, or Java/PHP handout. Otherwise, YouTube, I've got some 60 tutorial videos that go along with the lectures as we go along. And then, of course, the course webpage, Canvas, with the schedule, the help hours, the learning assistance, the labs, and the syllabus and policies. I think that's everything, isn't it? Let's see. Are we at the end? I can't see. I thought we had an honors. Nope. There are some more resources. Let's take a look at the syllabus to understand what the difference between the main section is and what the course, what this course section is. First of all, let me go over to the syllabus here. There are the skills objectives that we've already implicitly talked about. You can go ahead and read those on your own. Again, the format and delivery of this is that there is an online section. About half of you are enrolled in the online section. It is always going to be live streamed. Recordings will be available immediately after. Live Q&A available both on Piazza and YouTube chat if you need to attend remotely. Otherwise, labs, again, if you choose to be in person, that's fine. Go to the one, if you do choose to be in person, go to the honors section lab. If you absolutely need to, you can maybe go to the other one, but again, limit the number of people. And also some of the other labs are full as far as registration goes. But otherwise, you can always attend via Zoom. I don't have Canvas open here at all. All right, let's go to Canvas. There we go. Getting help. You'll eventually, there we go. Getting help and instructor info here. Look at that nice rainbow of help. right? Each one of those represents a learning assistant that is available during that time. You could still show up during the labs if you want. Of course, there's no, this is a common pool. The only LAs that we have down here are the honors LAs, but feel free to go and ask anybody else because it's the same project, virtually the same content, slightly different content in some places, but otherwise, you can go ahead and talk to any one of these LAs at any time that they're scheduled. If you need to schedule a time outside, they have an LA appointment tool that's available also on Canvas. Yeah?
So LAs wouldn't know both PHP and Java?
Oh, good question. I could point out a few of them that should know PHP. Definitely all of them should know Java, yeah. PHP, ask me. Otherwise, Martin is our course leader, and then Alex and David, most of you may remember David from last semester, are our LAs for this course. Right? They've got their office hours there, but there are plenty more office hours to choose from. Let's go back over here to the syllabus. All right. Continuation of instruction, that's something new this semester. You know, if we hit snow, or they finally call it because of, we had, what, 11% almost positivity rate coming back. If they didn't call it for 11%, I can't see them calling it for 20 or 30%. But in any case, if anything happens that we are no longer in person, I will continue live streaming from the comfort of my home. Right? So I've got better equipment there anyway. I've got a nice green screen. I shouldn't be here anyway. I should be at home. Anyway, the labs, again, there are 14 labs, but we dropped the lowest one, so that represents 260 points. There is a little bit different point distribution for the honor section. We'll talk about that here in a second. So it's slightly different, but it's roughly about 20%, 80%. The takeaway here is that there's not going to be any exams. There's not going to be any quizzes. Right? Everything that you are going to be assessed on for your grade is out there already. Right? Standard scale there. Labs, assignments, etc. 15-week policy. The last assignment is due during dead week, so keep that in mind. But there is no final, so once you're done with that last assignment, you're good to go. If you have any questions on grading, those two LAs, David and Alex, will be grading everybody's stuff for the honors section. So whoever you get, look on Code Post, and you'll be able to tell who graded your stuff, and you can ask them first. If you can't get it resolved with them, then come and talk to me. Right? No late work is accepted. It has to work in the web grader. If you didn't build your project correctly, go back to video 0.3, follow that step-by-step process, and you should be good to go. Yeah?
For like assignment 1 or like any of the assignments, if we're working in PHP, is there going to be a project structure we need?
No. PHP, in fact, assignment 1, regardless of PHP or Java, you're just handing in individual files.
Okay.
Yeah. Honor section. So the two main differences of the honor section are every assignment, or most assignments I should say, have built-in bonus. There's like there's 10 or 15% of the points are bonus. For the main section, that is considered bonus, right? They could get 110% on their stuff. For the honor section, it's all required. So it's part of your regular grade. That's why the 1,250 points, that's not exactly accurate for the honor section. The second thing is we go a little bit faster. First of all, we don't cover Java in the first 3 weeks because we want a third programming language. If you are deficient in Java or have never seen it, I've got those video tutorials. Feel free to watch the live stream of the main section if you want to. Feel free to do assignment 1 and all of those first 3 labs in Java to bring up your Java skills or whatever. But also throughout the rest of the semester, there are some advanced topics that I throw in. For example, HTTP or what have I done in the past? JPA. JPA is Java Persistence API. When we get to databases, it's an alternative for writing database connectivity code. It's an object relational mapping system. What else have I done? Maybe some network security stuff or something like that. Whatever we cover because we go a little bit faster. Right? Anything else? Not with the syllabus. Any questions on the syllabus? Otherwise, read it at your own pleasure. If you are taking this online, or eventually you treat it like an online course because you need to isolate or for whatever reason, I've got several tips for treating it well, treating it like a regular course, making sure that you are, if you're not in a physical classroom, make a physical classroom for yourself. Have a separation of concerns. I will only work on calc at the library. I will work on computer science at the study center. Even if you're just separating from your TV room, separating from your dorm room, separating from whatever distractions might be there, right? Carve out a time and a place, more importantly, a place where you feel comfortable going to stay organized and to stay focused. There's several techniques that I map out here. Make sure that you're syncing up with iCal or ICS format to the course calendar in Canvas so that you are aware of all those due dates. Most of them are Cinderella due dates on Fridays, except of course for the labs. Those are Cinderella due dates on Wednesdays. Don't make sure that you're following those due dates and keeping all of your courses tracked with some sort of organization. Look up on the Pomodoro technique, which is, you can't focus on calculus for 3 hours straight. I don't know, maybe some of you can. But really, the human mind can only focus on one thing for so long before it gets fatigued. The Pomodoro technique is this little timer. Pomodoro is a tomato, so it's a tomato timer. And what you do is you study for, say, 20 minutes. Ding, take a break. Go take a 5-minute break, go walk around the building or something like that. Come back, study something else. Ding, right? And, take another break, right? Change what you're focusing on. And don't cut out the recreation. If you like gaming, great. Schedule your gaming. I'm going to game for the next half hour, or whatever it is you do. Don't let it bleed into 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours all night long, right? Unless you've planned for that. Right? The quote I give from Reddit always is, sleep more than you work or study and work more than you play or party, and then party as much as you can, right? So make sure that you are creating a hierarchy of organization for yourself and not cutting out those things that you enjoy doing, building them into your schedule and but limiting them, right? Network, stay connected. If you're looking for a partner, jump on Piazza. There is a partner thread that you can start. That you can say, "I'm looking for somebody." Make sure that you're looking for somebody compatible. Again, if you're a night owl, they get up at 5 a.m. Probably not a good partnership. If they have 5 years of Java experience and you have 0, probably not a good partnership. Right? Utilize the resources that we've given you. Stay healthy, right? And that especially means now, masks, getting vaccinated if you haven't already, boosted if that's available to you, et cetera, but also to exercise. If you don't run, fine, walk. If you don't walk, fine, go play basketball. If you don't play basketball, do something, right? The physical activity is the #1 contributor to good mental health, right? Expect to be challenged. It's okay to struggle. College is hard. Computer science is harder. Everybody struggles at some point. Even if you found it quite easy up to this point, eventually you will hit that wall, right? And you just need. And if it's the first time you've ever hit that wall, that's your first experience climbing that wall or breaking through that wall. It happens to everybody at some point, right? Don't compare yourself to others. Compare yourself to yourself. And that means maintaining maybe a Gantt chart. Don't look at that other person that has gone through the first 3 weeks of the course material and is done with the first assignment. Look at yourself and say, this is my pace. I'm not going to work at their pace. Right? You're going to work at your pace, and the focus should be yourself. Right? All right. Any questions? Otherwise, there's the schedule. Right? First week, Lab 1, due Wednesday. There's the syllabus. There's the Gantt chart. There are videos on how to get started with a complete walkthrough of Lab 1. Next week, you'll probably want to read either the Quick Intro to Java or the Quick Intro to PHP. and maybe take, if it's Java, then you might want to watch these 13 videos. I don't have 13 videos on PHP. It's not worth it. Right? And then you've got assignment 3 due on February 4th. Right? And then we go on from there. Weekly reading, weekly, or module by module, we have readings and or video viewings. Right? Okay. Let's see. No questions? All right. Then I'm going to go ahead and get started with a terrible programming language called PHP. Now, I think I posted a video on how to connect to the CSCE server and use the CSCE command line stuff, maybe. It was from a year ago. I don't remember how I did it, but I'm just going to suggest that since most of you, okay, reconnecting. Nope. All right, so we'll go ahead and let that refresh here. While we're connecting to the CS50 IDE, most of you used the CS50 IDE last semester for C, and you still have your account. As long as you've got GitHub, you have your account. And I suggest just using it for PHP here. So I'm going to go ahead and go into my PHP folder here. And I'm going to create a basic hello world program. So hello.php. So there is the file. Obviously, it's empty. If I were to run this file right now, it'd be perfectly fine. Right? You told PHP to do nothing, and it did exactly that. It did nothing. Right? So let's tell it to do something now. Right? Hello world. I'll save that file, and let's do that again. It actually was not doing anything. Right? That's just text. I can put whatever I want in this. Add 1 to 1, please. Right? And let's do this again. All it's doing is taking the contents of that file and dumping it to the standard output. Because none of this is interpreted as PHP code. Why is this? PHP was invented, whatever you want to call it, in 1995 by Rasmus Lerdorf, I think it was. And the reason he created this language was because the web had just started, basically. And he wanted a way to have a dynamic web page. And so what he did is he developed a series of modules that interlaced code with static HTML. That static HTML is something like this, say. There's a paragraph, and then hello world. Right? Here is a header, H1, my awesome PHP program. Right? If it just has HTML in it, and somebody goes to your website, they'll be served the HTML in their browser, and then it'll be rendered. Right? I don't know of any way of rendering this on the CS50 IDE. We can do it if it's on the CSE server, though. It would not be rendered as these tags H1 and P. It would be rendered as this, this larger title tag and then this smaller paragraph tag. So what he did is he said, okay, well, sometimes I want to serve static HTML, and sometimes I want to do some dynamic stuff. I want to have a counter on my page. I think that this is actually why he started it. I want to know how many people have come to my web page, because back in 1995, when literally only thousands of people had computers, you could have a counter on your website that 50 people have visited my website. Wow, that's impressive, right? So what he wanted was a counter. And so what he did is he started to interleave this PHP code. To interleave PHP code, you need to go into PHP mode. By the way, does anybody know what PHP stands for? PHP rocks. Okay.
Isn't it like a recursive?
It is now. Originally, it was personal homepage tools. PHP now is a backronym or a recursive acronym. What is it? PHP define PHP. I think it's. Come on.
Oh.
Personal homepage. PHP : hypertext processor. So that's what it is now. It's gone through a lot of iterations. I think that the most recent version is PHP. Oh, here, Wikipedia will tell us. 8.1.1 as the stable release. 8.1. Hey, that's perfect PHP-ness. The stable release has a higher number than the beta release. Ass backwards, exactly like everything that PHP does. Wonderful. Right? I'm not missing this, right? And it even comes after. Oh no, the stable release. Oh no, sorry. It was my no preview release. Yeah, maybe that was the preview release, and then later on that was the stable release. Okay, and they have not had a preview release yet, superseding that. All right, fine, it makes sense. You can't beat up on PHP all the time, but yeah.
Why is like the Langle Wrangle for PHP different from the like normal HTML?
Good question. Ask Rasmus Lerdorf. a lot of PHP you'll find it's because that guy did it 25 years ago now, right? That's what he did. It was just a personal project that outgrew itself. Facebook was written and is still written in PHP, by the way. So PHP is still an extremely popular language, and you will find plenty of jobs doing PHP stuff. Most CMSs are written with a back-end PHP. So PHP is here to stay, for better or worse. Right? So it's not like I'm teaching you a dead language, like I don't know, Eiffel was never a live language, or something like Cold Fusion or something like that spiked in popularity and is now dead. Right? But PHP is still useful in that there's plenty of stuff out there that you can do with PHP. To go into PHP mode, it's Langle Wrangle with a question mark, and then PHP. Anything you put in here will be interpreted as PHP. So if you just go hello world now, that's not PHP. Right? In fact, it's telling me it's not PHP in the IDE. If I tried to run the interpreter, it would say, there is an error on line 7. Right? That's not PHP code. What you need to do is you need to print something. Print F, hello world. Hey, man, that looks familiar. Where have you seen that before? C. You will find, well, why? Rasmus Lerdorf, he didn't want to reinvent the wheel. He's lazy like the rest of us. So all he did was take the vast majority of PHP is just a thin wrapper to a C library. So how do I do a square root? SQRT of 2, right? That gives me the square root function. That's exactly what you do in C. Now, this looks like, something like this looks like C. Int x is equal to that. That's not valid PHP, and I'll tell you why here in a second. Yeah?
So you don't need to like call a math library?
Nope, you don't need to include anything. Oh. Well, I take that back. There are some things that are not part of the standard include, okay. But the math library is part of the standard include, okay. So you don't need to do anything special here.
And do we need to do like the link LM?
Nope, because it's not compiled.
Oh.
It's interpreted, right? What happens is, you'll note here that when it died, okay, unfortunately I can't show that to you because it died on line 7, but generally it's a script. The interpreter, which will do a few pre-processing things, but generally it will go top to bottom. This is fine, execute, execute, execute. When it gets to something that is fatal, it says die. Everything that it did up to that point is still valid and it ran. Whereas if you have a syntax error down here, in C, Java, it won't even compile. You can't even get this started. So all syntax errors now become runtime errors. Yeah?
Well, isn't it like PHP can throw warnings in the middle of your...
It can throw warnings that are not fatal. And it can throw warnings like this one. I think that this was fatal. Yeah. Because if I had something else out after that, if I misspell print, let's try this really quick. By the way, comments are C-style comments. So 90% of what you know already with C or Java is applicable to PHP. Let's try this again. Oops. Oh no. Okay, it didn't delete it. Touching does not delete, it just updates its last modified time. Thank you. All right, there we go. See, it printed that static HTML, and then it got to the fatal error on line 7. If I have a valid line after that, it will never get there. If I have a valid line before that, it will do it right there, hello world, and then the fatal error after that. All right. Okay? So let's get rid of that fatal error and reintroduce this other fatal error here. This is what you would do in PHP, or this is what you would do in, well, not int, that's wrong, double. But this is what you would do in Java or C, right? But you can see right here that the syntax highlighting, and in fact, the syntax error here, is telling me that this is wrong. Variables in PHP are dynamic. In C and Java, those are static languages. In other words, when you create a variable, you have to specify that this variable is a double, this variable is an integer, this variable is a char, whatever it is. You have to specify its type. If you say that it's an integer, it can only ever be an integer. You can't assign a non-integer value to it. Like in Java, if you try to assign a string to an integer variable, that's going to be a syntax error. The compiler does not know what to do that. It's a compiler error. But since PHP is interpreted and not compiled, a variable can be whatever it wants, whenever it wants, and it can change. If you assign an integer value to a variable, then it becomes an integer. Later on, if you assign a string variable to that variable, then it becomes a string, magically and dynamically. The only thing is, every variable in PHP has to begin with a $sign. Now, I'll repeat your question of why. It's because that's what Rasmus Lerdorf did. Right? He said he put that in as a rule in his language because it made writing the interpreter easier. If you have this rule that every variable has to begin with a $sign, then it's much easier to write an interpreter to recognize when something is a variable and when something is not a variable. So he's avoiding work, that's why. Yeah?
Is it related to like bash variables?
It might have been influenced by that. He was influenced by a lot of things. He was influenced by C, by HTML, maybe by bash or something like that, but yeah. Other languages do something like this too. So I've defined a variable x that holds that value. Let's print that out. If this were C, and I can use the exact same thing, square root of 2 is %f and the line, and I can print out x. And this should work. Square root of 2 is 1.41 blah, 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 blah. Right? If I want more digits, I can. 10 digits of accuracy. If I want to format it to the left with at least 20 spaces, then it'll do that for me as well. Right? Doing it to the right will actually show you what it looks like though. Right? So cut, paste all of your knowledge of printf formatting. You know now how to do it in PHP. If you fail to have that $sign, it will still run. It'll probably just be a warning, I'm assuming. Right? Oh, no. Yeah, it is a warning, but it might have been a fatal warning right there. This x is a variable because it begins with a $sign. This x is not a variable because it does not begin with a $sign. Without a $sign, it becomes a global constant, like, for example, m_pi. Right? If I did that, hopefully that seems familiar too. Where's that from? Math library, which is just a thin wrapper to the C library. Right? So anything without a $sign is a global constant. You can define your own global constants. We'll cover that next time, though. Is there another question? No? Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and change this back to x. And let me show you the dynamic reallocation process in action. X is equal to hello world. There we go. I would not be able to do that in C or Java, right? You can't assign, if it becomes an integer and it's declared as an integer, you can't assign a string value to it. But you can in PHP because it magically changes its type. So printf x is now, if I want to if I know that it's a string, I could format it like this, right? And this will be perfectly fine. X is now hello world. But what if I tried to make it into an integer? %d. 0. Why 0? What do you think? Why is hello world 0? Because it's not an integer, it's not any variable that can be parsed. Let me change this to 10 as a string. Now what do you think happens? It knows that it's 10. It knows that it's an integer now. Why? What happened? It's called type juggling. So what happens in PHP if you start to mix types? For example, if you concatenate a string and an integer, something happens, depending on the types. Let's find out what happens. Let's go ahead and create a message. Message equals hello world. And then x is equal to 10, right? No double quotes there. Double quotes are strings, by the way. Single quotes are also strings, as long as you're consistent about it. But I always use double quotes.
Don't single quotes, they don't parse special characters?
Nope, not in PHP. Not that I know of. Maybe that's a...
Well, that's the difference, right? Because the double quotes do.
We'll go ahead and try. I'm pretty sure that this will be the same thing though, right? So,
So like if you put an end line inside the string, and then print out just the string itself.
like print, oh, you mean print like message?
Yeah, just message itself.
I don't think that there's any difference between single quotes and double quotes here, but we'll find out. Hello world. Oh, you're right. Whoa, I didn't know that. Thank you. You taught me something new. That's really weird because I would expect something like this. What happens there? Same thing. All right, so it's like a literal. Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
Weird. I thought you meant that it doesn't get type juggled, but it definitely still gets type juggled, I'm pretty sure.
It's probably, yeah.
So what I'm talking about with type juggling here is, what I'll do is I'll concatenate these things together. Whoops, plus x. What does plus stand for in C?
Integer.
In addition, right? Integer or double, or even if you had a string and a string, the memory addresses of those strings would then get added, giving you some nonsense, right? What does it mean in Java? It depends. If it's a string plus a string, it's concatenation. If it's a number plus a number, then it's addition. If it's a number and a string like I've got here, what is it in Java? It's a compiler error in Java, right? So you can't do that. Well, actually, sorry, I take that back. It's not a compiler error. What is it? It's string concatenation. Yeah, I think you were about to say string concatenation, and you're right about that. Yeah, it takes the number or the base 10 representation of that number, treats it as a string, and then concatenates. What happens here? Print. I'll just go ahead and go with print foo. Print, printf, echo are all interchangeable. Let's find out. What do you, bets? Hello world plus 10. Ah, it's a warning. Okay, this is my. Oh no, it's a warning. But then, what's the ultimate result here? 10. Okay. Why? 0 plus 10, exactly. What it does is says, oh, okay, one of these things is a number. So therefore, I'm going to treat both of them like a number. Well, this is 10. That's obvious. MSG, what is that as a number? It starts parsing. And if it sees a number in there, say 100, what's the result here going to be here? No warning and 110. Why? Because it parsed this as 100. Then it said, okay, this is 10, so 100 plus 10, that's going to be 110. But as before, it was hello, or hello world. It sees H. What has it parsed so far? Nothing. What's the numerical value of nothing? 0. And that's why it ends up being 0. Right? Now, here's the real head scratcher. What if it's partially a number? What's it going to be now?
Oh no.
20. Y and a warning. All right, Y. I see 1. I see 0. I see H. Oh, okay. What have I parsed up to this point? 1, 0 is 10. So 10 plus 10 is 20. Right? So you have to be very, very careful here. Yeah,
Do
go
they have
ahead.
like 1 in the beginning and then 0 somewhere in the middle of the hello?
That stuff is ignored.
Um,
So yeah, so PHP sadness. So now let's get into comparisons. What if I change this to, well, I'm not going to change this. What if is message equal to x? Printf. Yes, indeed. Or not. Else. Printf. Thankfully, no. There we go. So yes, indeed, or thankfully, no. Yes, indeed. Why? That's because PHP says so. That's 10. Oh, okay. Well, that's a number, so I must parse this as a number. 1, 0, hello. Oh, what have I parsed so far? 10. 10 is equal to 10. Are they equal? Is that thing equal to 10? No. Not conceptually. Yeah.
Isn't there triple equals for string?
Yes, there is. And that is the difference. So now it's no, thankfully. Thankfully, no. Right? The equals is both type, is this a number and is this a number? And if so, then do they have the same value? Is this a string and is this a string and are the contents the same? If you're going to do strings, though, use strcat from C. Right? Question?
It's like if Python had like an eagle stepsister.
It is. Any interpreted language is going to have something like this. Python has something like that. JavaScript has a triple equals. And by the way, what's the triple not equals? Not equals equals. The loosey-goosey one is that one. This is called loose comparison. I'll just call it loosey-goosey comparison. This is strict comparison. Right? This is loosey-goosey inequality comparison. This is strict comparison, 2 equal signs. Right? You can also do other weird stuff like this. That's always going to be, nope, I take that back. I don't know. Is it less than? Probably not, but for other reasons. Right? Is this greater, less than, or equal to? There's no strict less than or equal to, unfortunately, I don't know. But yes, indeed. Why? Because they're equal, right? There is no strict less than or equal to, though, so you can't go that far. Right? Yeah. Strictly less than or equal to. I guess you could, conceptually it would make sense. You could write that out as a compound operation. By the way, it is and, or, that kind of stuff. Cut and paste all of your knowledge so far. Right? In fact, the differences between C and PHP are only going to be the weird stuff that I'm going to highlight for you. Right? All right, questions? Otherwise, we'll pick it up there on Thursday with more PHP sadness. All right, remember all streams are available online immediately after as a recording.